To address those questions, after which we will ask the audience and those of you who are online to ask questions. So please feel free to put those in the chat whenever the time comes. Erica, they're all yours.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today for my final presentation. I have a QR code up here on the screen. If you want to scan it, that's just some materials that I'm going to be talking about and some stuff that I've worked on over this semester. So just to get started, I think I know all of you in the room here, but just to talk about a little bit about my background, kind of how I got to where I am today. I grew up on my family's farm. My mom grew up on the farm raising dairy cattle, and when I was on the farm, I started with showing a little bit in dairy for a couple of years, and then I really got into market livestock. So in that, I was involved in 4-H and eventually FFA. And the second I stepped into that intro to ag class in 8th grade, I said, yep, this is where I want to be for the rest of my life. I want to be in ag education. I love the environment. I just love the people. And up here, I just have pictures of just some of my people, and there are lots more people that aren't included in kind of my journey in agriculture, starting out really young, picture kind of up towards the top right corner. When I was just a little dairy miss at 8 years old, to where I am today. So where I come from, I am from Claysville, Pennsylvania, very small town in Washington County. Dr. Curry, the timer. I know I'm going to be cutting in close on time, so I want to make sure that I can keep up with that. Okay, so I am from Claysville, Pennsylvania, which is in Washington County, so southwest corner of the state, very tiny little town, and I am a graduate of McGuffey High School. So I mentioned while I was in high school, I was an FFA, and that's a picture of me and my ag teachers, Mrs. Cambruzzi, Mr. Leisure, and I owe a lot to them to where I am today. They are the reason I am standing here in this building, because when I met Mrs. Cambruzzi, I said, I'm going to Penn State, I'm becoming an ag teacher, and I'm going to be just like her. And then Mr. Leisure came along. I took some of his classes, and he helped me a lot too. And they both just pushed me to do more, and they knew that I had a lot of potential, and so I owe a lot to them. So we talked about where I'm from, where I'm going. I'm going to be student teaching at Selinsgrove High School, which is in Snyder County, so the center of the state. Very different from southwestern Pennsylvania, and I'm excited to get to see the differences and the similarities and the area and the school and the student demographic. I'm going to answer the questions kind of in a reverse order. So I'm going to start with, how am I prepared to maximize my student teaching internship opportunity? This is just a little bit of kind of a big glance at the Selinsgrove Ag Education program. So there are 2 teacher program. Mrs. Fry is going to be my cooperating teacher, so I'm going to work directly with her. Mr. Swineford is the other teacher in the program, and I'm going to do a little bit with him as well. They operate under 2 zip codes. They have agriculture production. So Mrs. Fry primarily teaches those classes, while Mr. Swineford teaches the agriculture mechanization classes. They offer 9 different courses. So Ag Foundations is one of their courses, but then they also have a few courses in ag mechanics, a few courses in plant science, and a few courses in animal science. Some of the strengths of their program, the biggest thing that stands out to me is the participation that they have from students. When I started out in 8th grade at my school, I kind of only saw the ag kids participating. They were the only ones that were really involved in FFA, really involved in those things. And that is not what I saw in Selinsgrove. It was very different. Every kid was doing CDEs and LDEs. Every kid was going to conferences and conventions. Kids who had absolutely no experience in the industry, no experience with anything whatsoever, and then kids who had a lot of experience. So I really appreciated that, just that active student participation. The second thing is the positive program reputation. There was not a teacher in that school who didn't have something positive to say about the ag program, about Mrs. Fry, about Mr. Swineford. And if they didn't have something positive to say, I don't know that they would have said it to me, but it was all the good things that they had to say, which really made me think, wow, like, this is not just like they think they're great. Everyone thinks they're great. And then just the facilities that they have are really great for students to get hands-on experience. So they have a greenhouse, they have an ag mechanics shop, 2 classrooms. One is Mrs. Fry's classroom, where she has trout in the classroom. She does incubation with chicken eggs and some floral design. And then Mr. Swineford has a classroom. And there he does a lot with small gas engines. They also have a floral cooler. So a lot of really cool things for students to use and get involved with. This is just the master calendar of what I'll be teaching. So Selinsgrove operates on an A-day, B-day schedule, which is very different from what I come from because my school, you took the same class every single day. So this is a little bit different. So the top is my A-day schedule and the bottom is my B-day schedule. So I'm going to be taking Ag Foundations, which is their kind of like intro course. I get to teach plants and food. I get to do the entirety of the first marking period in the building construction, and I'm teaching electrical wiring, which I don't have a ton of experience in, but I'm excited that they have trusted me enough to kind of give me that in its entirety. And then kind of jumping down to the B-day schedule, I'm going to be doing the horticulture class, so teaching landscaping. I have absolutely no experience in landscaping, so I'm excited to see what I can do with that, and greenhouse production, which I am most excited about. In high school, I loved being in the greenhouse, so very excited to get to teach students in there. And then vet science 2, kind of tacking on right at the end of my experience, and I'm going to be doing prescribed medicine and needles and bandaging. This is a little bit about how I'm organizing all of these things. So for every class that I'm taking over, I have one of these, this big photo, I have one of these tabs, which shows what am I doing every single day? Are we at farm show? Am I observing? Do we not have school? Or what lesson am I teaching? And then it directly links to that lesson and all the materials in it. And then that picture on the bottom there is just a little snapshot of the folder that goes along with every unit I'm teaching. So it has all the lessons and folders with materials in there, and then also the unit plan. This is just the bell schedule. So they operate on a block schedule, very different from what I'm used to. Again, at my high school, we operated on a period schedule. So only having 4 classes a day is very different from my like 9 classes a day. But I'm excited to see what I can do with those longer periods, that longer amount of time, and what I can get students to do instead of having that like kind of 40-minute cutoff. These are my personal strengths that I think I'm bringing into my student teaching experience into Selinsgrove. First of all, it's just my love and experience in both plant and animal science. So in high school, I followed through all the plant science classes, and then I had a lot of that animal science on the outside. So when I had my market animals, just working on and living on a farm. In the classroom, I think I bring a lot of preparedness and organization. It might be very last minute preparedness and very last minute organization, but I like to go into stuff prepared and organized. Maybe it's like getting that together an hour before, but I want to be ready when it does start. And then just with student interaction, I think I bring a lot of empathy. I also just love to get to know students. And when I did, we do a life knowledge lesson. So we go into the classroom and teach for a day. And I just loved talking to the students and hearing about what they had to say. And some of them were like venting to me about their problems. And I was like, I don't really know you, but I'm glad that you can trust me enough. So that's one thing I really think I'll bring in. And then the final thing is just my love for public speaking. I would love to, and I hope to, when I'm at Selinsgrove, coach some students in public speaking contests and really help them, because that was the thing that took me outside of my shell when I was in high school. And I just think it's a great thing for students to do. Some of my areas for growth and the things that I hope to improve on during my time at Selinsgrove is, first of all, ag mechanics. Mr. Leisure and Dr. Ewing have taught me everything I know about ag mechanics, and I'm very grateful for the time and effort that they have put into me. But I'm also excited to work with both Mrs. Fry and Mr. Swineford. They both have experience teaching either previously or currently ag mechanics, so I think they'll have a lot of knowledge to impart on that. And then in the classroom, 2 things that I really want to improve on. Time management is one of my big things. That works in both running overtime, running behind time, kind of figuring out how we don't do things last minute, and also behavior management. I think that's probably the thing I am the most nervous about, is being in that 9th grade class or in that ag mechanics class and having students who are maybe just a little bit crazier than the other students. And how do you handle that? How do you get their respect? and just be able to manage that class. So now moving into what experiential education opportunities have I engaged in to become a better agricultural educator? The first thing I want to talk about is some classes that I have taken here at Penn State that have really helped me. So the first one I want to highlight, and a lot of people highlight it, I think it's a really great class, especially if you don't really come from an animal background, is Animal Science 201, which is just called Animal Science, with Dale Oliver. And that class taught me two things. It first taught me all the like nitty-gritty details I didn't know about animals. Like I knew how to work with animals. I, had raised them almost my whole life, but I did not know the little like sciencey things behind them. And it's a lot of great information that I could teach students in high school because it's very like base level information, but it's a lot. So I have my folder, my binder that I will be keeping probably for the rest of my life and hopefully using in my classroom someday. But it also taught me how to study because I did not have study skills before I took that class, and it's very essential in order to do well. The next class I want to talk about is Agroecology 134N. So this class, when I took it, it was kind of split into two pieces. The first piece was focusing on that like sustainable agriculture factor, especially in like production. We got to visit the agronomy farm and the student farm and kind of learn what their practices were. And then the second part, we learned a lot about policy, and we got to assume the role of some agricultural group. I was like the National Cattlemen's Association. And in that we got to see, okay, what's the policy that we want to see like in the Farm Bill, and how does that contribute to sustainability within our industry, but also how is it benefiting us? And you got to like form up partnerships and do a lot of really cool things, which is something that I could see maybe a little less intense, but using in a classroom one day to teach students how that like sustainability piece especially connects, and how policy is really important, because I feel like that's something a lot of students can miss. And then the last class is Geography 3N. So this class, it was mainly focused on like a capstone project, was almost the entirety of the class, and you were assigned a region. So my region was the northern tier of Pennsylvania. So it was regions across the entire United States. So I had one I was a little bit familiar with. But we researched temperature changes, and we researched the topography and the history of settlement in that area and the social and economic status of people in that area, and how that affects how they produce food, how that affects where they're getting their food from, and what it is going to look like for them in the future. What is the status of that area going to be kind of across all ways? So that was a really cool class that I really enjoyed. I'll come some of my like extra little things. So minor certifications, accreditations. I do have an international agriculture minor, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. I also am CPR certified. Beef quality assurance. We're tasked with kind of getting at least one more certification. And I chose this one because there's a lot of good information in there that has to do with things I'm going to be teaching in that vet science class, especially with, giving animals shots and doses and dealing with all that, which I have done before, but kind of on a very simple level of here's a needle, give it to this animal. So kind of learning the safety and all that. And then National Safe Tractor and Machine Operator Program. So now I know how to safely operate a tractor, although I have never operated one, so maybe someday I will. And then I took Dr. Foster's Parliamentary Procedure class. So I am an accredited parliamentarian. For professional development, in both the National Association of Agricultural Educators and the Pennsylvania Association of Agricultural Educators, I'm a student member. So NAAE, we actually just went to the conference last week. We were in Nashville doing a lot of really cool things. I really enjoyed that experience because I got to go to workshops in a lot of different areas and also learn like what is ag education across the United States, because what we do here in Pennsylvania, even what we do per school in Pennsylvania, is very different from what they're doing everywhere else. So I appreciated just the opportunity to be able to network and connect with teachers across the entire nation. For PAAE, I got to attend a regional meeting just a couple months ago, and then also the summer conference this past summer. So more workshops, professional development. Really helpful to have that like local level, like these are the teachers that if I stay in Pennsylvania, I'm going to be working with. And so good to know like who's the expert in what area, who can I call when I'm having problems where. And then Alpha Tau Alpha, this is like a professional honorary fraternity for students in ag education. And through that, I have gotten to compete at the National Conclave that coincides with National FFA Convention. And what I appreciate about that was just getting to meet other students in ag education, you know, from first to fourth year in college, and getting to see how are our experiences differing, what can we learn from each other. This is about all my internships. So I've been lucky enough to have a few really cool internships that I want to share about that have really added to what I know, what I'm going to do in the classroom. So first of all, I have the 4-H logo up there. The summer after my first year here at Penn State, I did an internship with Sheila Hackinson, who I have known my entire life. And I worked with her in the Washington County Extension Office. And this was really cool to see how that informal education piece works. I had gone up through 4-H, I had been involved, but I didn't really know like the ins and the outs and what is it on that other side. And that was really cool, just planning events for kids, helping with camps, and then just seeing like day-to-day work in an extension office. I did Horizon Farm Credit the following summer. So I worked with Carrie Baumgardner as a customer experience intern. So I was kind of focusing on that like employee customer relationships. I got to talk with a lot of producers across Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia. And this showed me that even though I'm coming here and I'm gonna leave with a degree in ag education, and I hope I love the classroom and I hope I want to teach every day for the rest of my life. But if I don't, there are other doors, there are other avenues that I can take. And I wanted to make sure that I knew those things were out there and that I never felt stuck in one place. And then all the way over there on the right side, the Pennsylvania School for Excellence in the Ag Sciences. This past summer, I was a mentor for PCs, and this taught me how to manage the attitudes of high school boys and girls and how to deal with all of those things. So it was a lot of like classroom and behavior management, which was like exactly what I needed. And I also kind of got to build those like student relationships and find out what their thing was, why they decided to do the program. And I still hear from some of them today about them getting into Penn State, and they're so excited to tell me. So that was a really cool experience. In the middle there, I have like the Teach Ag hand, and this is kind of to represent my time with the Center for Professional Personnel Development. So I have worked for with John Seaman and Beth and Dr. Curry and Dr. Ewing and everybody for my entire time here at Penn State. And it's just been really great to, again, like get to meet teachers. I work with like I'm emailing a lot of teachers, and then I meet them later on. They're like, "Oh yes, I remember getting an email from you like way back when. And if you need anything, reach out." And just getting to help with professional development things and state convention and all things like that. And the last one I have on here is the PAAE logo. So I've gotten to work with Thomas Gable the past year as a PAAE intern. So I've helped a lot with their awards process. I've helped a little bit with like social media, website edits, and again, another really great like networking opportunity, but also a lot of good work that I'll be able to use those skills later on. And now I'm going to talk about like a couple of life experiences that I've had. So the first one is Belize. When I came to Penn State, I was very anti anything international agriculture. I said, I'm not getting the minor, like I'm not doing anything like that. I'm here to learn content and that's it. But what I didn't realize was the international agriculture minor could teach me so much content that is really important to students. So I got to go to Belize over spring break, my first year here, and a lot of you are probably laughing at the picture of Dr. Ewing in the lower corner. We kind of tricked him that night, made him take that picture of us. He didn't realize it was also taking a picture of him. But
it was my first be real.
Yeah, it's be real. Yes. But we had a lot of fun on this trip. It was we had a really great group of people go, but we also learned a lot. And I think we all know like agriculture is everywhere, but to be able to actually see it and see like what does a small family farm look like in Belize? Like what does a large production farm look like in Belize was really cool. And this picture here on the left, we went to one school. This was lunch for the day. We did not stay for lunch, but that was a really awesome school to see because every student who was there was literally learning how to be a farmer essentially. They were learning how to sustain themselves and how to support their family. And that's very different from what we see here. If someone here was like, I'm going to school to be a farmer, unfortunately, society would probably laugh at them. But there, it's a very real thing that is very necessary. And I think that's important to show is that all of us who are here at Penn State learning and how to work in the agricultural industry, it's very important, not just here, everywhere. The next experience I want to talk about is my time on the Farm Show Junior Committee. During my time, I had 3 very wonderful advisors, Michaela, Heidi, and Carlene, that really helped me. I just kept coming back year after year after year, and they were like, okay, like, what's this girl doing here? But I got to know them really well and got to become really close to them. And they are also people who really helped to push me because they would send me a text and be like, I think you should take this opportunity. I think you should apply for this. I think you should do that, which was really great. I also got to meet a lot of cool people. So that's a picture kind of towards the center and on the top of me with the president of Penn State. On the far right, that is me and GT Thompson. And then on the bottom here, on the left, we got to meet Dr. Temple Grandin, which was a really cool experience. And as all of you probably know, I served as the 2024 Pennsylvania Fair Queen. And this experience taught me a lot of things. Again, like networking was a really big point, but it also taught me how different agriculture is across Pennsylvania, which I don't really think that I knew before that. And I know that might like sound a little bit silly, but we do things very differently in Claysville than, you know, they do here in Center County or that they do in Susquehanna County or in Lancaster County or in Erie. And I appreciated seeing all of those different pieces. And this really helped contribute to my decision of where I wanted to student teach because I had a little bit of background. I had seen a lot of different places and I kind of knew what I was looking for. And I met a lot of teachers and a lot of students. And that was really great. And then just a lot of really cool experiences with this. So kind of from those experiences and from a couple of other things, we got to do a lifelink lesson with students. So students from State High in their like life skills program come here and we got to work with them and do a lesson with them, which is cool to just, you know, a lot of the students had an array of disabilities and how do you create a lesson to accommodate all of them? And what are the changes that you're making? And very different from, you know, just writing out a lesson and thinking everyone can do this one thing that we created. And kind of the other piece of this is in one of the workforce education classes that we take here at Penn State, you have to go and do some observation with an English language learners classroom. So I went to Mount Nittany Middle School. I did this a couple of years ago, but I sat with students who could not speak a single word of English that were sitting in tech classes and we're sitting in, you know, family and consumer science classes and there was somebody with them helping them to learn and understand. And it was kind of like, okay, how do I work with their teacher while I'm still teaching every other student and just kind of working on how you can make it kind of fair for everyone. So 3 things just in diversifying my classroom. First of all, just understanding the learners that I have, knowing their backgrounds, knowing their needs, and maybe using surveys to kind of guide instruction. So what am I doing that's really helpful for those students? What am I doing that's not so helpful? What do they need? Planning for everyone. So that's designing lesson plans that probably have varied modes of instruction or varied modes of assessments and what's best for those students is going to help them learn the best. And then supportive tools like visual organizers and guided note sheets. So the final question is, who do I aspire to be as a teacher? In that QR code, my teaching philosophy is in there, but just to kind of quickly run through, I like to think of it as a tree. So those roots, those are like the foundation that is supporting those students and is focusing on how can I help push students into the real world? How can I get them on those career pathways, prepared and ready? And then kind of going up through like the tree trunk is equipping students with that foundational knowledge and those real world applications and showing them the careers that are available and how what we're doing in the classroom is going to help them someday. And then finally, the leaves, the blooms, that is just helping students to know that I'm a lifelong learner and I want them to be lifelong learners too. I want them to build confidence and leadership skills and overall just have an appreciation for agriculture and what it can do for them. I have my classroom management posters. I have them up here for you to see a little bit better, but also here. So for procedures, Basically, I just wanted to focus on what are we doing when we come into the classroom, what are we doing while we are sitting in the classroom, and what are we doing when we leave the classroom. Those expectations, my intention is for them to go both ways. So I'm going to be respectful, prepared, engaged, responsible, and I expect students to do that as well. And then at the bottom of that middle one is always strive to be better. And that's something I want to establish between both of us. We're going to come into this classroom every day and we're each going to strive to be better. And then consequences just kind of follows what Selinsgrove's plan is. So verbal reminder, a call home, and then office referral. For my ideal program curriculum, it's a little bit basic, but my intention is that these courses will contain a lot of things and a wide array and kind of go really far across whatever we're focusing on. So when students come in, I want in ninth grade, ideally, they're all taking an intro to ag class. So they're kind of getting those foundations for the plant, animal, and mechanics, and then also some FFA knowledge. And then that plant science route in 10th grade, they're taking that intro to plant science. And then the bottom two could flop, 11th or 12th, it wouldn't matter, but those would be the next two classes they kind of flow into. Then we have intro to animal science. And my intention with that small and large animal is they might rotate every semester, every year. So it wouldn't be something students would always have an opportunity to take, but they would take one of those two, and then they would end with vet science, and then intro to ag mechanics. Selinsgrove teaches a building construction class, and I think it's really cool because it doesn't just focus on one piece in that. It kind of goes all the way across. So they're like learning like the basics of building, and that's something that a lot of them could probably use in a job one day. So teaching that with the intention to have like electrical wiring and masonry and plumbing and some woodworking, and then welding would be the other class there. We were also tasked with designing a facility. So of course I designed a greenhouse, my very favorite. I think a greenhouse is great because you can teach students a lot of things in here. Obviously, you're going to teach them like how to plant pretty flowers, but you can also teach them like employability skills. So one day when I have a greenhouse, when I have a school, when I have students working here, I'm going to make them apply for jobs in the greenhouse. I think that's a really cool tool. And I'm going to make them go through interviews. I'm going to make them interview each other and like build up those skills. Also in here, I included an aquaponics system, which I think is great to kind of like merge that like animal plant together. Yeah, but just a lot of room for students to be creative, and I'll have a plant sale because I think that's the best thing ever. We also had to make a $15 project. So for my $15 project, I made this little coaster set. So each of these is a coaster that you like take off and put your drink on, but then they can all sit back here on your coffee table at the end of the day. And this is actually the bottom of my Christmas tree. So I was kind of like, recycling a little bit there. But this would be really good for students. They can learn to work with a lot of different tools, but they can also make it their own. So they could paint it, decorate it, make it really cute. For SAE integration, each student in my program would start with an SAE, ideally like a foundational SAE, just to kind of get started, introduce them. Probably every week or every couple of weeks, we would have time to work in AET. I was a student that never did her record books. And so I would kind of force students a little bit to do that. And then they would get a grade just for keeping those record books. For FFA integration, for career leadership development events, my goal is to kind of show students how what we're learning in class could apply to all the different events there are, and how sometimes you can like win a little bit of money if you do them at the local level, and how it can be really fun to meet new people, and just encouraging them to go out and do those things. For service and leadership, service, just working in the community, wanting to be a part of something bigger and helping those in the community. Leadership would be officer teams and committees, and just getting involved and helping to guide other students at that higher level. And then I know in Pennsylvania, we have a lot of really great conferences for students to attend, like Fall Leadership Conference. We have a state legislative leadership conference. We have ACES, which I never remember what it stands for. But just encouraging students to go and attend those things and learn so much. And then of course, conventions, so state and national convention, having students go, meeting other students either across the state or across the country. For program recruitment, on my side, I just want to be a welcoming presence. I know my ag teachers were. Those were the people that you could go to and talk to about anything, and they had fun classes, and you always walked into the room and you knew it was going to be a good day. identifying who that target audience is that we're bringing into the program, just having a quality program in general, and using students, because I feel like you get the most kids into your program when their friends go out and tell them to take a class and they tell them to get involved. They tell them to go to an event or whatever it might be. For community integration, just having an occupational advisory committee, so including local community members in that. An alumni and supporters chapter. My school did not have an active alumni and supporters chapter when I was there, but Selinsgrove does, and I think it's really helpful. They help with fundraising and just all things that the chapter might need, which is great. Inviting in guest speakers and presenters. I am not an expert in everything, and so when there's something that I know students need to know, good, relevant, whatever the information is that I don't know right now, bringing guest speakers for that. And then just partnering with local ag businesses, either for like students' SAE projects or just to go out and help in general, apply what we're learning in class. So that's all I have. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported me along the way, and the photos up here do not begin to include every person who has been a part of my journey, but I just wanted to put a few up here and just say thank you. I have learned a lot during my last 3.5 years here, and I'm very sad to leave, but I know there are great things coming to me. So thank you, everyone.
We're going to ask the folks online if you could please put your questions in the chat. We will relay those over. Can I get a couple from our audience to get us rolling?
So thank you, Erica Jo, for all of this. It's been really exciting working with you the last however many years. I find it fun when you were just being honest about how you're like, I didn't want to do international at all. And so what I want to know is through your experiences doing InTag and going to Belize and kind of working in this area where global is a thing, how will you bring that to your students and encourage them to go outside of their own boxes?
Just teaching students about that global component, I think, is the first and most important thing. And I'll include this. You told me not to talk about this, but I will. We had meetings with Maya about like how kind of like cultural competency. So one of the things that I really like put into my lesson plans was that like global component. Now there are going to be students in your classroom that are maybe, you know, not from where you're from and they have different things. So including that, but also just showing them like opportunities are not within a box, like they're outside the box, they're everywhere, and just as they come up, like encouraging students to take them and teaching them about them, I think is important. Yes.
I have a very surface level.
Okay.
But I'm just curious. So in the class schedule, it said there was seal time each day.
Yes.
What is seal time?
Okay, luckily I have a Selinsgrove teacher right here. So in case I get this wrong, I think I'm understanding it, but in case I get it wrong. So it's a time when, so classes are like 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. You like, there's a schedule and it goes through, and maybe you have your 1A class that day and they come back to your classroom. And it's more of just kind of like a free, like flex time.
It's a
from what-
flex time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so students can meet if they have clubs, they can meet for clubs, they can go seek assistance with their teachers if they have stuff to make up. So it's just a built-in, for lack of a better word, study hall, but we make it so that students have the opportunity to go do club work.
And they're not going to the same place.
Seal mascots in central Pennsylvania. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
More sense.
Yeah,
that's, you don't make sense.
Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, Abby?
So during your time at Penn State, you were involved in a lot of things, whether that was on or organizations in the college of ag. What's something that you learned through your leadership or involvement on campus that you want to take into your classroom?
Communication is key, and constant communication and constant reminders. I served as the president for the Penn State Alumni and Supporters chapter. So I worked with an officer team and I worked with committee members. And even when I wasn't president, even when I was just a member, it's like making sure that you are having that communication. And I think especially like 17-year-old boys like need a lot of reminders. So just carrying over that skill of communicating with students, making sure that, they know what's up, know what's going on, and that also they're communicating back with me. So kind of trying to teach that skill to them. Yes.
Ms. Teagarden, could you please describe for me the educational purpose and function or educational objective of having FFA? What is its educational purpose?
To me, the educational purpose of FFA is to teach students real skills that they're going to be able to use in the real world. So whether that's like they want to be a vet and they're participating in like a vet science CDE, or those public speaking skills I talked about that are probably what I believe is like the most important part of FFA is the like communication, public speaking, leadership skills that are taught. But also like that showing students that like you're not just here to learn about like cows, you're also here to better yourself.
Erica, my question extends that a bit more, which is I was going to ask you about your philosophy behind your leadership team, so your FFA officer team. If you could talk me through a little bit of how you would fast forward to a year from now in your own program, how would you facilitate the process of having or selecting an officer team, and what is the talk to me more about the types of individuals and what they're going to experience in that year of service.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of different ways that schools choose officer teams. So for me at my high school, it was upperclassmen, so graduating seniors were on the selection panel, as well as a teacher at the high school and a community member. And to me, that's the way that I would go about it. I know some schools do more of like a popularity vote sort of thing, like students stand up and give a speech. But to me, in order to create that really meaningful, hardworking team, you need kind of some of those outside people, inside people that know what's up. And just during their year, I would stress to the students that you're not here for yourself. You're here for every other student that's not on the officer team. How can you make their experience in the ag program in FFA the best that it can be? And also, how can you loop them in and include them so that we can get more kids to apply and want to be on the officer team? So doing that through committee work and having students sign up to be involved with planning and helping events, and knowing that it's not just on however many individuals are on that officer team, but on the entire chapter as a whole.
Erica, I'm here in SEAL time right now. So you were talking about that. I'm just curious.
I'm so sorry. I can hear this. Okay.
This bow, so.
Okay.
Can you speak to your approach or philosophy to program planning and evaluation?
Yes, I can. When I think about program planning, obviously it's stressed very much to us. Like you want to make sure that what you're teaching students is, and I've said this like 1 million times, what they can use in the real world and what like the local community needs. And but I also think it's like focusing on those student interests and what are the classes I'm teaching, what are the events that we're doing that students want to do and students will enjoy. And I think that takes some time to like figure that out. You can't just go in somewhere and be like, yep, this is what we're doing. You don't know those students. But just making sure that it's very like student focused and very much so what will benefit them the most.
You could ask Val if she has a question.
Oh. Val, do you have a question?
They're in the class. She says she has a class with them, so I don't know. If
Okay.
Self to ask them. Why is it in that?
Erica.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm here in SEAL time and you've been here for SEAL time. So you know that it is like a very busy, fast-paced, so I'm trying to listen, but I'm also helping kids with SAEs. We've got a Christmas party this week. So I guess my question for you is, how will you balance FFA in addition, like while you're here, and obviously I'm going to help, but how do you plan to balance your FFA responsibilities alongside with your classroom responsibilities while during the school day we only have that 31-minute period?
Yeah. Okay, if everyone did not hear her, she asked how am I going to balance FFA activities with like actual school that is happening. And so seal time, we said, is only like 30-ish minutes. So how do you do that in that time? And I think it's just going to take a lot of work and a lot of patience and a lot of making sure that there is a focus list of what do we need to get done, when does it need to be done by, and how can we accomplish it the best. And that's kind of where that like preparation and organization really comes in. I know sometimes it will get crazy and not everything will get accomplished, and maybe some stuff gets pushed to the side a little bit, but just making sure that it's a focused time, I think is important.
Questions for her?
And I've been asking everybody, but what is your long-term goals, your 3-year, 5-year?
I've been anticipating this question.
I know you've been.
I've heard it a couple times today. So we just went to the NAE conference and they had us in a jar on sticky notes write down what is your goal in 1 year, what is your goal in 3 years, and what is your goal in 5 years. And Jenna was sitting beside me and I looked at Jenna and Ben was looking beside me and I looked at Ben and I said, I literally don't know what to write because I'm not sure what that means for me. So I made very vague goals. I did make one very specific one, which is my 1 year goal, and it said maybe teach. And I know it's like, oh, you're an ag education major. Like, why is that? Why is your goal maybe teach? And I just don't know what post-graduation means for me. Like, I just don't know where I'm going to kind of feel like I need to be. And I've said this over and over again. One day I would love to be in a classroom in Pennsylvania. And I want to retire from an ag education classroom in Pennsylvania, but I don't know that's where I want to be for the next however many years. So my goals in 3 and 5 years were find something I love and figure out what I need to do it well. And my 5-year goal was just be confident in whatever I am doing and feel like I am where I belong. But maybe in 5 years, I'll be really confident in something. And then year 6 comes around and I'm teaching. We'll never know. But that's how I'm feeling right now. Yes.
I know that you want to, like, inclusion is important to you. How do you include kids that are not the typical ag kid, the kids in the life skills class, the kids that have the severe learning disabilities? How do you include them in it?
This is something that I've thought about a lot during my time. So I'm going to give a little bit of context to why my mom is asking that question. My youngest brother has Down syndrome. And so we're always kind of worried about how is he going to be included in the fun things. And so every time I'm planning a lesson, every time I'm thinking about an event, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how is every kid going to participate in the fun things? Because every kid deserves to participate in the fun things. And it's just making sure that you find something that they can do, they feel confident in, and and just keeping them involved in however that can be. I just went to Fall Leadership Conference a couple months ago, and there was a boy who had Down syndrome, and he was there loving every minute of that conference. And I know some teachers would have looked at him and said, no, you cannot go. So it made me really proud of the Danville FFA chapter that they had a student there with a disability, and just every chapter that involves them in that way. And that's who I want to be. I want to involve every student, no matter their ability, no matter where they come from.
I think that's a great way to finish. Yeah. And congratulating her one more time.
Thank you.
We have 2 more presentations at 2 and 3. We have a 15-minute break. We have to go. Thank you.